Hello, ladies and gentlemen. My name's StepsBasic, and welcome back to my community show. I don't know what it is about that, but I really love doing that. It's a cool little song there. First of all, announcements, like usual. Let's talk about the Babbling Beards. So, we have started the Babbling Beards podcast. I'm going to have the podcast channel. I'm going to have the link at the end card again. I think I'll promote it for the next couple of weeks. Hopefully it'll pick up some more traffic. We got the second episode of the podcast, well, which was actually one of the test episodes of the podcast going up this week, this weekend. And I'm going to be posting up my first highlight reel over there. And then I think I'll put Bubble Ninjas up on Monday. Kind of excited about that. So, as you've seen, we started the double episodes of a single series this week, sort of. We did it on Wednesday. We're supposed to be doing, I was supposed to do it on Monday and Tuesday, but because of everything else, I wasn't able to do that. But no worries. We're getting there. And let me know what you guys think. This is a test run for the rest of the month. Hopefully I'm going to be able to catch up on things. Upcoming game series, I'm going to finish up Final Fantasy. We're going to start up Days Gone at the end of the month. I'm kind of excited about that. I'm really excited about that because that one looks like an awesome game. So I won't be live streaming with my PlayStation anymore until I can figure out a better way to do it, because my PlayStation doesn't seem to be able to hold a connection for longer than a couple of seconds. But I will be still doing the podcast with Bubble Ninja. That'll be the only live stream that comes from my PlayStation. I'm going to be starting to switch over to live streaming on my PC. I have a few games that I can live stream now. I'm looking forward to that. I know with the April Fool's joke, I didn't get a whole lot of traction on it, but I did have a pretty serious question on there. It was like, hey, did you guys want to see me do more Cuphead videos? And let me know if you want to see that. But anyway, moving on to the topic of today, going back to the stream of consciousness things. I don't know why, but I really feel like these, because after doing the first one, it really felt good, you know. It kind of, I don't know if you call it an unburdening or anything, but it just kind of felt nice to sit there and just talk for a little while and reminisce, as it were. And I kind of wanted to talk about my job, my career, my life, as far as work has been concerned, because I've always been kind of an industrious chappy. It's an interesting little idea, though. When I was growing up, I had, just like the same with every other kid. I had 5 billion jobs I wanted to be, and I kind of often wonder what my life would have been like if I'd have pursued any of those. I often say that, like, the longest running, like the biggest passion in my life, the biggest goal has been to be an author. And that's very much true. From when I was a little kid to now, that's the only job I've ever actually fully 100% wanted to do. And it's always, step by step, day by day, how do you reach that goal sort of deal. I know when I was a kid, that was my main, want. But I always wanted to do other things as well. Like, I wanted to be a carpenter. I wanted to be an astronaut. I wanted to be a scientist. A biologist, as it were. I wanted to do stuff like Jane Goodall. And, them other folks who wanted to just go out and live in the wild. Always seemed like a simpler life, Away from everybody. Just enjoying your passion while enjoying nature as well. And that was really what was the most driving factor for me wanting to do stuff like that, was just the pursuit of a passion. And that should always be your ultimate goal when it comes to looking for a career, really, is the pursuit of your passion. Things like that are unbalanced, Sometimes your passion doesn't pay well. and sometimes you have to work to get to where you want to be. And a lot of times people fall short. Actually, it was kind of funny. I was talking to a friend of mine recently about that, because she's she's 17, I think. I forget how old she is, but she's either 16 or 17. And she's worried about it because she doesn't really feel like she knows what she wants to do with her life. And I was telling her, funny enough, the people who are more together, the people who know exactly what they want to be, are the ones who often fail more often than not at becoming anything. Now, of course, if they succeed, they often succeed better than anybody else. But if they don't succeed, they fail worse than everybody else as well. So it's not necessarily a bad thing to not be fully prepared for knowing what you want to do with your life, especially when you're barely in high school. And it's just kind of one of those things. You kind of have ideas and goals, and like, I don't know what I'm good at. I don't know what I want to do. And that's actually not a bad mentality, because much like me, I was always dedicated. I want to be a writer, no matter what. And after I got out of high school, I joined the military. They had one job that would have probably been a better choice than what I took, which would have been the JO, or the journalist, and I could have pursued my career in writing that way. Instead, I opted to do ship serviceman, which was basically retail for the Navy. There was a bunch of other jobs mixed in there too, but I was aiming more for the retail side of it. And even before I went into the Navy, I had numerous odd jobs. I worked at Kmart, which was my only official job before the Navy. And that was right about the time when they were filing for Chapter 13 and shutting down a bunch of stores. In fact, my store got the chopping block. That was actually one of the funniest things about my career, my life goals and aspects, is every job I've really gone into has suddenly suffered a bunch of badness. I worked for the landlord of my trailer park when I was a kid. I weeded and stuff. I did groundskeeping stuff essentially for my trailer park. I wasn't really serious about it. It was just kind of a summer job. And I took a bunch of other odd jobs, cleaning houses, cleaning yards. Cleaning yards was the best because I got paid the best for it. Picked up a lot of weird skills like tarring roofs and whatnot. And in Arizona, that is a dangerous job. But I never actually went into anything official except for Kmart. My mom worked there, and she talked to my best friend's mom, who actually managed the shoe department, which was a separate entity from Kmart. And I got the job, and that was literally the only job I could get back home. I've talked about it before, where I was, well, let's just keep the politics out of it. I was denied jobs for various reasons, but none of them were truly, really fair. But living in a border town, I was fairly limited to a small border town, I should say. They basically just want to hire people they know, that sort of thing. And that's kind of what drove me away from Douglas too. There was just no prospects. I remember the day I signed up essentially to talk with a recruiter. Was a rough day for me, because being a kid, I was bipolar. I had my fun issues with my brain going on, and I remember the day I baked dinner, cut all of my hair off, and then I got a call from the Navy recruiter saying, "Hey, you want to come see us?" I'm like, "Yep, sure do." It was so spur of the moment, it wasn't even funny. I was technically signed up to go before I was even 18 because I graduated early. And I remember talking with the recruiter, He's like, yeah, he offered me what was essentially a reactor work for the nuclear stuff. Actually, a very prestigious position if you get into it and follow it. But it's also long and grueling hours, which wouldn't have been a problem so much for me. But I was worried, with my mental state and everything. I was like, I don't want to work with something that serious. So my recruiter offered me instead. He's like, so what can you do? I'm like, well, I'm a good cook. I like to write, and I've worked at Kmart. And so he's like, well, we have journalist, we have culinary specialist or mess specialist, and ship serviceman. And I'm like, well, I don't really want to write the news, and I hate cooking for a lot of people. So let's check out ship serviceman. And he told me, he basically sold me on the idea of where you get to run the little store on the ship. And I'm like, oh, cool, that'll be great. I can do that. He didn't tell me too much about the other stuff that ship servicemen do. But you know what they say, if you ever meet an honest recruiter, they're probably lying to you. He was a chief at the time. I think he's retired by now. Yeah. So I joined the Navy. Great prospects, That'll help me build my future. Didn't tell him I was bipolar because I was never officially diagnosed, so I could kind of get away with that. Although when I joined the Navy, yeah, it was funny. We'll talk about that one some other time, but the whole mental state thing is a fun trip. So I joined the Navy, and I hated it. Not so much the Navy, but the positions I was in. Because I had to start out in laundry, and I hated laundry. It was good physical labor, but apart from that, it was hot and gross the whole time. We're not going to talk about my training. That's another thing, though. Went into the ship store finally. I was actually promoted to petty officer 6 months after I got to my first command because I did so well in my training. I got what was called the Accelerated Advancement Program, the AAP, which jumped me from E1 to E4. Pretty darn big leap, but, they felt I was ready. Well, my chief didn't, but I'd already earned it, so they had to give it to me. And I worked laundry, and then I worked in the ship store. And I hated it. It was boring. It was monotonous, and it drove me... I worked in vending. That was actually one that I liked. That was one position I liked. And I worked in the barbershop for all of about a week. Because, well, you can only ruin so many heads before they kick you out of there. I also worked closely with the records keeper, and I called myself the assistant records keeper for a while. And, yeah, that was about it. That was the fun part. I transferred out of that division after my first deployment, and I was like, I don't want to do this anymore. So they stuck me in housekeeping for when the ship went into the yards. That was the one thing that happened in the Navy when I first joined, was my ship got stuck in the yards for 3 years. I didn't stay there for 3 years, but they got stuck in the yard for 3 years. And then I transferred to my new command. There was a minor little space in between where I did about 6 months in the post office. But again, that'll go back to my mental health stuff. But after doing the ship serviceman stuff, I didn't want to do that anymore. So I started moving away from it, Started looking into things I could do with my hands. That's actually what led me to break my hands a lot. Although, I should clarify that because I talk about breaking my hands a lot, but I've never actually broken officially any of my bones. I'm pretty sure the pinky's been broken. But because of the use of heavy machinery, electric and pneumatic chisels, the muscles in them have been beat to crap. And that's what I mean when I talk about breaking my hands. I never actually officially broke my fingers, but if you look at my pinkies, they're bent in kind of funny ways. But again, I don't go to the doctor a lot. So I can't really guarantee that anything's ever been broken or not broken. Yeah. And that was actually a good point in my Navy career. I didn't like the fact that we were stuck in the yards for who knows how long, but I did learn a lot of skills. Like I got to work with air conditioning units. I got to learn a lot about painting, grinding, cutting. I got to learn how to use a bunch of power tools and whatnot, and that was a lot of fun. And especially at one point when I worked with what was the RCOH division for a little while, the supply RCOH division, which was that was probably the highest point in my Navy career, because I was an E4 doing the work of an E5, because they trusted me because I did really good work and managed my people well. So I ended up becoming a working supervisor. Got my own special projects team, which was really cool, and really liked that. Then I transferred to my new ship, and my new ship got decommissioned. Still didn't officially. I mean, I knew I wanted to be a writer, but I didn't know what I wanted to do with my life. And when I got out of the Navy, I shotgunned a whole bunch of applications out there. Hey, I want to work with your security company because I have some experience in that. Hey, I want to work at the shipyard because I have some experience with that. Hey, I want to work with accounting because I have some experience with that. Hey, I want to work at Domino's because I'm desperate and I need a job. Yeah, that was around about the time when I got officially broken, as it were, when the Navy gave me my disability check. And funny enough, it was Domino's that secured my disability. I mean, I got 70% when I first got out, 70% disabled, and I could still work, if I could find somebody who would be willing to take a chance on me. But then when I went to Domino's and applied with them there, I straight up asked the guy, so why can't I get the job? And he's like, you know what, to be perfectly honest with you, we don't want to take the risk on you. Your mental problems is a big issue. And I've had people tell me so many times, hey, just don't tell him you got mental problems. I'm like, yeah, sure. And then something happens, and then I get fired or sued because I didn't tell him about something. I'm like, yeah, sure, I can do that. That would be a smart thing to do. Nobody seems to understand that there's legal recourses if you don't divulge stuff that could be detrimental to, the company or whatnot. In some cases. Other cases, not so much. Depends on the state you live in. And perfectly honest, I didn't want to take the chance. And so Domino's rejected me for that, and I was able to report that to the VA, and they bumped my disability up to 100%. That wasn't what I wanted, though, because I don't want to be a disabled person. I don't know very many disabled people who do want to be disabled. I know, that's funny. Even to this day, though, I still put applications out. It gets a lot easier when I get rejected, though. It's been a lot easier since then, because I haven't been able to work. And I've talked about how I've been neglecting my writing. I've been doing much better lately. I'm working on a story right now. Hopefully it'll be a big hit. I know it's got an interesting premise, and I really want to finish it. And I've also got my magnum opus, as pompous as that sounds. Looking forward to that. And at one time after leaving, I tried to get a degree and become an RN, a nurse. I really wanted to do that because I got some experience while I was in the Navy working as a stretcher bearer. It's not nursing, it's not doctoring, it's a low-end version of an EMT. Like, you show up, you make sure the patient doesn't die, and then you move them to medical, and that's it. And but while I was working abroad, went to Haiti. I think it was '09 when they had a massive earthquake hit the place. And I was on the Nassau at the time, the USS Nassau. And when I went out there, I got to help so many people, help pull on. We pulled on so many injured adults. One kid had lost the lower half of his leg, but he was the bravest kid there. The bravest person there. We had like adult folks there screaming and crying. They got cuts on them everywhere, but this kid, he's missing his leg, but he's just sitting there stoic as all get out. And I'm like, this kid has got the soul of a warrior here. I almost adopted a baby. I mean, I say almost. I wanted to adopt a baby, but I didn't do anything about it, which was good because they ended up finding the parents. We found the baby in a box in Haiti, and it said, baby in box, do not throw away. They wanted us to pick up the kid and bring the kid to America, but of course that's not what we do. I was like, I want to adopt you. You are precious. You are tiny. You are my darling little baby. But couldn't do that. I stopped by and visited that baby like 3 days in a row, and then they found the parents, and I couldn't say bye to the baby, and it was really sad. But seeing the stoicism in that kid, knowing that I helped in some way, in some even small way, this baby and those people who were injured, just that, made me feel like I meant, and I mattered, and it was great. And that was one of the biggest reasons why I went in to try to be a nurse. I probably should have gone for EMT. Probably should have put more forth into EMT, but I really wanted to be a pediatric nurse. After seeing that kid and knowing that I in some way made a difference in that kid's life, I was like, I gotta do this. But wasn't in the cards, as it were. Ran into a really bad situation. That's a story for another time. But ended up having to fail out of nursing school because I couldn't do it. In an emergency situation, I am cool as a cucumber, but in the nursing situations that I was in, when everything was quiet and I had time to think, I always overthought, and always messed myself up, and that was what cost me my presumed career as a nurse. But I picked up some useful skills there. A lot of useful knowledge. Especially from, because I went to ITT Tech, and while they weren't a very good school in general, they hired, actual folks who did the job, actual nurses teaching nursing, and that was what was important to me. I remember the day that I talked with my teacher, too, about that. Because I couldn't get my grades up, and I couldn't keep myself in a position, It was at clinicals that I failed, not the practical part, or not the studying part, but when we went to the practicals, I couldn't do it. I couldn't be with the patients. I didn't have the patience. That's not true. But I remember, we're sitting in the break room at the hospital with my teacher and me. It was just the two of us. And she basically told me, I don't think this job is for you. I don't think you should be a nurse. I broke down crying. Because apart from writing, that was the only thing that I actually felt anything for. And because of everything that was going on in my life at the time, I knew she was right. I mean, I knew she was right before she knew she was right. But that was a painful moment. And I felt bad, too, because I knew I was the only guy in my class. In a class full of, 6 women and the teacher. I was the only person there. I was the only guy there. And I know that cannot have been comfortable for my teacher to see me just break down crying like that. It wasn't just a sniffle. It was a full on I broke down. Admittedly, I probably wouldn't have if everything else hadn't been going on, but still. So I switched majors and I kept going to school. Switched to electronic engineering technician. I figured, sort of the same thing. just working with computers and stuff instead of people. And graduated, actually. I may not even know this, but I have an Associates of Science Technology, EET. EEET. Electronic Engineering Technician. Whatever. I have that. I got to learn a little bit of coding. I got to learn a little bit of processors, and I got to learn a lot about building circuits and whatnot, and troubleshooting stuff. And I'm like, yeah, that's pretty cool. Then I graduated that, and then I went into project management. And that job was like, I learned a lot of that stuff in the Navy from, accounting and whatnot, and business and project management and team management and stuff like that. I learned all about that in the Navy. And so I literally didn't learn anything I think it was 3 months I was taking classes there. I took 1/4 of project management, and I just didn't learn anything. So I abandoned that. So I'm doubly a college dropout. Check me out. I've dropped out twice. So after that, keep shooting off applications and keep getting denied. I wrote a lot for a couple of years, tried to get my books published, and that's what led me to where I'm at now. That's what led me to YouTube. I've picked up a good number of skills in my life. Skills that under any normal circumstances would pay the bills. Life's funny that way. But anyway, that's all I got for today. I wanted to talk a little bit about my work history and everything, and I just wanted to, think about it, because that's what these stream consciousness things are. And, it's funny. I do feel better. I really do. Just talking. I don't see psychiatrists nearly as much as I should, so maybe that's why. But anyway, thank you guys so much for watching. Hopefully you enjoyed this video. If you did, please go poke the like button for me. If you'd like to see more from me, make sure to hit that subscribe button. And of course, as always, you're more than welcome to leave comments down in the comment section down below, and I will get back to you as soon as I can, when I can, if I can. You know all that jazz. And tune in next time for another topic at another time. And until then, good night.